Welcome to the Pathways to Success. I'm Julian Placino, recruiting professional turned success speaker, show host, and media entrepreneur. This show is dedicated to helping you find your unique pathway to success by having conversations that educate, inspire, and transform. Together, we'll interview some of the world's greatest leaders and uncover their secrets to success. Thanks for tuning in, and on to the show. Welcome to episode 196 of the Pathways to Success, where we have conversations that educate, inspire, and transform with the world's greatest leaders. I'm Julian Placino, your host, and we have an incredible show for you today. Today's episode is brought to you by Code Up, the premier career accelerator in Texas. Code Up's web development and data science programs take you from beginner to job-ready professional in 22 weeks from the comfort of your own home. Code Up's data science program has an 88% employment rate, and their web development program has an astonishing 99% employment rate. Code Up is so confident in their programs that if you don't find a career in field within 6 months of graduating, you'll receive a 100% tuition refund. So if you are looking to start a career in web development or data science, I recommend you check out Code Up at codeup.com. I am very excited about the guest that we have today, and it is none other than Calvin Carter, CEO and founder of Bottle Rocket. Calvin, welcome back to the Pathways to Success. How are you?
Thank you, Julian.
It's good to see you. And we had a little bit of an issue getting to the show, man.
Yeah, I was late.
Yeah, so thank you for bearing with us. We're here a little bit behind. So
Apologize again.
No problem. Calvin, I'm very excited that you're here and very grateful. I've said this so many times to you and social media. Our amazing audience knows this, that working for you and working for Bottle Rocket has radically transformed my career and my life in public and verifiable ways. So thank you so much for this.
Oh, that's awesome, man. It's when you and I were talking many years ago,
Yeah.
and we were talking about one of the cool things in our culture at Bottle Rocket is this thing called rocket science, as you remember.
Yeah.
And it's usually pretty straightforward for an engineer or an artist to kind of get an idea of what to do. But you said, like, I'm not totally sure what I want to do. I'm like, well, what are you passionate about? This is not about doing something for the company. This is about, having a space and time to do something that you've always wanted to do, that you knew was inside of you, but you just didn't have the opportunity to pull it out, and you pulled out something beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ever since I started my professional career, I remember saying that I'm a grown-up now, I have to put aside my creative tendencies and do work. But Bottle Rocket really allowed me to play and to discover and all that, and quite frankly, what we're doing right now is evidence of that, so thank you.
Work is a commodity. Creativity is where it's at.
Yeah. Calvin, for people who have not heard of Bottle Rocket, please tell our viewers, what is Bottle Rocket?
So Bottle Rocket, started actually about 13 years ago. You know the origin story where Steve Jobs held up the recently announced iPhone and said, I'm going to open this up to third-party developers. I'm going to open this thing called an app store. No one knew what the hell that was going to be.
Yep.
And a few months later, and so literally the next morning, I started Bottle Rocket and essentially started to just build apps in an effort to learn. Because there was no such thing as like app developer outside of Cupertino at that time. And so it was, for me, it was many months, years of it, in fact, of just sketching app ideas cell by cell, usually at a Starbucks, and then eventually built up the muscle that I was able to then land an amazing client, National Public Radio, and we ended up building all of their mobile, completely changed the paradigm of linear broadcast radio, and really brought a new level of relevance to the business. And then that was quickly followed by Disney and ESPN and American Express and all these other big companies that would not normally hire a little tiny company except for the time of disruption. It's when there's a time of disruption, it's when the small, fast-moving bits can take that opportunity to thrust themselves forward in a market that we wouldn't normally be even invited into.
Yeah.
So we now we're about 300, going to about 350 by the end of the year. Just really talented engineers, artists, quality assurance, product, business strategists, professionals, experienced designers. And we have the great fortune to be able to work with some of the most interesting and wonderful brands in the world, like Pizza Hut and Southwest Airlines and Robert Half and Frontier Communications and Albertsons Companies and Bloomin' Brands and Chick-fil-A and all sorts of other amazing companies. And we essentially are in the experience business. We are an experience consultancy. We understand consumers, their behavior, today's consumers. We understand how they want to do business with brands, and then we put that brand in the best position to do the most amount of business by meeting the consumer where they are, not the other way around.
Calvin, when I joined back in 2012, I was employee like number 30 or something like that. It was still kind of the early days, and so many things I think you were learning as an entrepreneur and Bottle Rocket as a business. But now it's done all of these things. And how many apps to date would you say?
Over 500.
Over 500.
Yeah.
So knowing at the beginning and kind of where you are now, what is the future? What do you envision Bottle Rocket becoming?
So it's interesting. We've always been known as the app guys, but we've become so much more than that. And so part of the answer to your question is what we're doing today, because just in the last couple of years, we've introduced all new offerings, and these are offerings that are much more business strategy oriented, product ownership and management oriented versus just project. Also a much more sophisticated level of technical architecture, security, and all of the parts that are necessary to go higher and higher in Maslow's hierarchy. We're always trying to push ourselves and our clients and everything forward. And so those early building blocks is what we're now building on top of. But where does it go from here? 3, 5 years in the future. We will always be a technology-enabled experience company. That said, the cool thing about being in our business right now is because of the huge change in consumer behavior that has been not created, but accelerated by the very unfortunate pandemic that that our entire world is dealing with right now.
Right.
But that has thrust, basically, if you looked at trends before COVID for 4 or 5 years, you'd see these trends. And then trends like delivery, trends like online, all these certain trends, online buying of groceries finally started to actually happen. People have been trying it for 20 years now. But it finally started happening, and then COVID hit, and all of those things just literally went like that. We have clients that said that their revenue from their mobile applications or website and whatnot were 10% or less of their total revenue, are now reporting 40 to 50% of their total revenue just 1 year later. So it's already there, but it hockey sticked. And I don't think humans go backwards a lot. I think they like to go forwards. And so because of that, pandemic aside, I don't think we go back to that world, because so many consumers were basically forced to try these new ways of working with brands. Instead of being able to go into a grocery store for health reasons, they did it through an app, and then pulled up and it got put in the back of their truck, car, or they got it delivered to their home. There's a lot of people who said, I never would have done that, but for the fact I had to do it. And now that I don't have to do it anymore, I kind of liked it. And I might not do it every time, but I certainly would do it for my standard weekly staples, because that's no fun. It's fun to go to the grocery store and get tonight's dinner and something you're going to cook and have fun with. But it's no fun to just stock up with milk. It's no fun to just stock up with more bread. That's something that you can put on autopilot using technology so you can focus on other more important things. And we're not going to come back from that.
That is incredible. 40%?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just huge. It's multifold change. And every customer that we talk with, some of them are not as high as 40 to 50%, some are 35%, but again, it's always like a 3 to 6 times what it was before, which is just about 5 to 6 years of trend happened in 1 year. That's why it feels so different. It's not different. I mean, it's different. It's not new. It's been going on. It's just now, the vast majority of our population has been thrust into this new way of working and entertaining themselves and, buying and enjoying services and entertainment and everything else.
Calvin, before we take our commercial break, I'm recently reading Good to Great by Jim Collins, and of course, as you know, vast study of why businesses succeed and why they don't. If there was one thing that stands out to you that Bottle Rocket has done differently throughout the years that has allowed you all not just to survive, but to thrive, what would you say that is?
So I'd say the building blocks, and I'll come down to one word, but let me start with some building blocks. The building blocks, I believe, to being a successful, highly competitive business that's relevant in the marketplace is the combination of passion and perseverance, not ever giving up. And then finally, there has to be, something that, like a greater good that brings everyone together. Because our passions are very personal to us. And perseverance is something that is really hard to do. And that's why most companies don't succeed. They just don't stay in the game. Yeah. And after you're done with that, when read Simon Sinek's new infinite, or relatively new, infinite finite game theory stuff, right. Oh my gosh, totally changed the way I lead the organization. One of the most pivotal pieces of content I've ever received. But if I had to pick only one word, it would be passion.
It'd be passion.
It'd be passion, because that's really the beginning of everything else.
Yeah, and we're going to dig more into that. So Calvin, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Let's coin a word, passion at scale. How about that?
Passion?
Passion at scale.
Passion at scale. We will put that in the show notes, 100%. First heard by Calvin Carter. So we're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from our amazing sponsors.
You want to transition out of your career and do something tech related. CodeUp is the place for you. When I came to CodeUp, I was actually working at a chain hair salon. It was just starting not to be for me anymore. My goals were to never work a weekend ever again, to have full health care and benefits, and to just have more time with my son. And now I've met all of those goals. I don't have any regrets. I just regret not coming sooner when I saw those billboards and I was driving down the highway.
And we're back with Calvin Carter, CEO and founder at Bottle Rocket, and his keys to success. So Calvin, just a small gift from the production here at Pathways to Success, and of course, courtesy of our friends at Dead Soxy.
I love this stuff. Oh my gosh, you've been kind enough to give me a pair similar to this many years ago. Love it. Great product, great material.
Awesome.
Unbiased, reference
and I know
there.
you're big into the packaging. I saw the black and also the branding, so it was great.
I like Dead Soxy. That's just, that's someone that's having fun with their brand. Yeah. And we all like fun, so why not have fun with our brands? Don't be so uptight about it, have fun with it. So Dead Soxy, really cool brand.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you, Jason Simmons, founder of Dead Soxy, for supporting the show. So Calvin, I want to jump into keys to success, and the way that we framed this conversation is I had a conversation with Jana, your head of marketing, and I said if there was only 3 things Calvin would be passionate about speaking on when it comes to achieving personal and professional success, what would they be? And that's how we came up with these 3 points. And the first one is know your purpose. How do you define what purpose is in the context that we're going to speak about it?
So purpose is that seemingly unanswerable, haunting, frankly unfair question, which is, why am I here? The big question. Wow. Why do I exist? Why am I on this continent, on this planet, in this part of this galaxy? It's the really, really, really big questions. The reality is that we all have a purpose. It's inside of us. It's just that we unfortunately did not come with the manual that said, welcome to life, your name is Calvin, and your purpose is to build beautiful things that you love, which happens to be my personal purpose. And I was lucky enough to reconnect with an old friend, probably when I'm 50 now, probably when I was like 20, 21, Rand Stagen, who has an amazing local consultancy called Stagen Institute. Some of the best thinking comes out of that organization, and I'm not just saying that because he's my friend. It's phenomenal work. And from that, I learned at a very young age the importance of really know thyself, know who you are, and then be true to that. Don't try to fake it. Be true to who you are, the good, the bad, the ugly, and tell everyone you meet who you truly are. Because we, usually through high school and those formative years, we kind of we armor up, we suit up with our armor, and we try to, fit in or not stand out, or, because we're in like a defensive mode.
Right.
And then as an adult, you have the opportunity to either lay that armor down and bring your true gift to the world, your purpose, or to just continue to hide behind that armor. And the reality is I'd say 95% of people just hide behind the armor. Some out of ignorance of not knowing that there is something outside of the armor called their passion and their purpose and gift to the world. And some, it's just fear-based because, fear, it's fear of embarrassment, because embarrassment can lead to shame, and it's one of the darkest places a human can go. And so it's safer to not, but I think it's the opposite. I think it's safer to be who you are, because then at least you would actually have done something and made a difference and made a mark with your life.
Was there a particular moment that you can recall that you realized, wow, this is my purpose? Because I'm trying to sort of unpack if there was a process or methodology.
There was a long process. Yeah.
What is that
and
like?
So there's great tools, and I learned a lot of these tools from Stagen. But what Stagen taught me was, hey, it's more like you're going to the mall and you're going to try on clothes. You don't buy the pair of pants and then go try them on. You go into the fitting room and you just try 5 or 6 pairs on. If one fits, great. If none fit, you just go to the next store. So its idea is it's trying on different things. It didn't start with build beautiful things, that I love. It was, it started off with something about building, but it wasn't any of the nuances about bringing the word love and the word beauty and these other things. I knew I liked to build things. As a kid, I liked to build things, but I didn't really know how to articulate that in adult years, because I wasn't building with clay and Legos. I was building with people and processes and opportunities and technology. And but so there's usually something that you already know that feels good. When you hear a word, you just like it. Like when I hear the word make and maker, I light up. Yep. That's exciting to me. Some people like highly competitive words. That sort of thing. There's all sorts of different things we're drawn to. And so be your true self. It probably took me a good 15 years to refine exactly what my purpose was. And today I have to be open-minded that, maybe I don't have it figured out. And I liken it to a archaeologist who's trying to unearth the dinosaur bones. And at first you kind of start with the big tractor to move the big, big clumps of dirt away, and then you use shovels, and then you use little shovels, and then you use little, and eventually you get down to the point where you're using a toothbrush to move grains of sand one at a time. The dinosaur was always there. It just took a process of refinement and refinement and refinement to actually unearth it, but it was always there.
It was always there. If there was one action that our viewers could implement immediately after this show, just to get one step closer to what that purpose might be, what would you recommend for them?
Probably read Start With Why by Simon Sinek, one of the popular, easy to absorb materials from some of the, great writers out there. I think also, Jim Collins is really I don't know if he's the father of it, but he kind of feels like he's the father of it. My early work with Stagen was reading a lot of stuff from Jim Collins. And so if you read that as kind of, let's say, a historical perspective and a grounding, and then you maybe read something more recent, like something from Simon Sinek, and you put those two things together, and you'll either know right then and there whether or not this excites you and gets you going, or maybe it's just not the right time in your life. But there's no good time for this type of work. You just have to make a decision and stick with it and never, ever give up. Never give up, and never give up on yourself.
Calvin, values. You say it's very important to follow your values, but it's also important to them. It's also important to discover them. So how do you separate values and purpose, I guess?
Okay, so purpose is why you're here.
Yeah.
And and your values are the guideposts that you follow in your journey of the pursuit of that purpose. So what I mean by guideposts, so you're driving down a mountain road and you're getting up to a corner, and there'll be a sign that says, sharp turn. It'll say 20 miles an hour instead of the 50, mile an hour posted, just before that. There might be the picture of that truck that's tilting sideways, with an exclamation point, that sort of thing. Now, that sign is not going to do anything to your car. That sign's not going to slow your car down. But that sign is there to remind you that this is a good thing to do. We've decided previously it's a good idea to slow down for mountain turns. Without that sign, you might just kind of blow right through it and get hurt on that curve. But with that sign, you have the opportunity to think mindfully about the next thing you're going to do. So when we make decisions in our business, not just our personal lives, but our business, we make them through our values. We, of course, want to do things that are good for our business and good for our people, but then we look at our values and say, does this resonate with this value here and this one and this one? If it doesn't resonate with one of the values, we can't do it. And when it does resonate with all those values, it emboldens us to do it at all cost. Because yes, there's a sign here that this is the path we need to take. Even simple decisions like how much we're going to spend on software tools this year, to give our employees an opportunity to do the best work of their lives. Even stuff like that, you run through your values. You don't just run it through for a financial analysis. That's just one small part of it. The infinite thinker thinks, does this resonate with who we are, who we've said we're going to be? So you come up with those guideposts, and then they will appear to you as you're on that road. And you have to constantly look to those guideposts, but then you have to take the action. And usually the biggest gap in leadership when it comes to values is the gap between intent and action. We judge ourselves by our intent. The world judges us by our actions. A lot of leaders have great intent, but they don't take the action. They have the intent, they came up with the values, but they didn't follow them.
A mutual contact that we have is Philip Romano, who is, of course, the legendary restaurateur.
Yeah, super successful, fun guy.
Fuddruckers, Macaroni
Artist
Grill,
now.
Eatsies, and he's an artist now, right? And I remember when I interviewed him, I said, Phil, you are a record holder of the only restaurateur to produce X number of national concepts. And I said, Phil, what's the one thing that tied all of those successes together? And he calls it the Bill of Rights, which is a set of values. And that's why I'm very curious as far as what you said about this. So if you were to pick one key value that you built Bottle Rocket upon that made it the success that it is, what would you say that is?
We got a lot of great values like respect others and embrace the impossible and ask the tough questions and things like that. Take your craft personally. But the one that I really go to, because I see that as like the unlocker to everything else in our business, is serve the user.
Serve the user.
Serve the user. For us, the user to us is the human that is going to benefit from the thing that we created. Whether it's a consumer, a Chick-fil-A customer using the Chick-fil-A app, or if it's a Robert Half employee using their employee portal type, app, that sort of thing. It's a user, or they are a user. And it's important for Bottle Rocket and Rocketeers to understand that we are here in service of them. Yes, there are other super important stakeholders, like our clients, like our employees, like our business partners, technology business partner, Apple, Google, et cetera, that we work with. But ultimately, everyone's interests are aligned when we serve the user. And it gives us that true north, that what would the user want? It gives us that true north, and it reminds us what is the most important thing. And one of my favorite quotes is, the most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing.
Yeah.
And for us, serving the user, if I had to pick one, would be the most important things. When you do that, everything else lines up.
And when it comes to values, do you separate like your personal values with the business values? Is there an overlap? How does that dynamic work together?
Sure. So as a founder, I'm in a unique position where my personal values were obviously very strongly influencing the early years and the formative years of the organization. And so there's this really heavy overlap between my personal values and the businesses. And you may remember this many, many years ago, like 2 or 3 offices ago, so to speak, there was a point at which I realized, and we probably had maybe like 85 employees at the time, something like that, and I realized that I needed to like, not let go of, you know, the culture of the business, but I needed to trust the Rocketeers around me, that they could carry it even better than I could. And I walked into, I sent an email out, and I said, like, hey, if anyone's interested in, like, you know, really likes our culture or wants to do something with our culture and they're just jazzed up about culture in general, you know, meet me in the conference room. And like 3/4 of the employees, you know, met me in the conference room. And we're all standing around, and I literally, I walked in, and I was actually kind of tearing up a little bit when I did this. Yeah. And I put my hands down on the table. I kind of walked in like this, and I put my hands down on the table, and I'm going to tear up right now. And I said, take good care of it. Thank you. And I walked out. And that became the Lift Committee.
The Lift Committee.
That became the group of volunteer Rocketeers who would carry that torch. Because, yeah, I carried it pretty well, but I'm just one person. And yeah, maybe I lit the torch. That doesn't mean I can carry it the best. And so this group of diverse people, and diversity is one of the best competitive edges. We have to do a whole story showing that. But it's that diversity and that, like, plurality of thought that allowed that culture to go from as far as I could take it to where it is today and where it will be 10 years from now.
Yeah, I love that. Calvin, the last key to success, of course, is never giving up. And that can be easily dismissed as a platitude. Tell us why that's really important.
Yeah, so I'm the son of 2 entrepreneurs. Both my mom and my dad were entrepreneurs. And they've taught me a lot, obviously, but the one thing that they taught me, not just in word, but in their action, not just their intent, but their action, was the power of never giving up. And absolutes are usually words that you want to stay away from. It's like, what is it? Jedis don't use absolutes. I'm a big Star Wars fan. Yeah. But this is an absolute that I carry in the form of an absolute, and it's I never give up. And someone said, like, well, yeah, but, you know, eventually. I'm like, no. If it's something I love, never, ever give up on it. And so my dad would always tell me, never give in, never give up. Repeat it after me. Never give in, never give up. And it becomes almost like a meditative statement to yourself, especially in those tough days where it's never give in, never give up, never give in, never give up. Say it over and over and over again. Because to succeed, it just takes perseverance. As long as you're willing to outrun, outlast, out anything the person next to you, by definition, you will succeed. You can't not succeed. How long does it take? How much is that success? It's variable. You know, everyone's mileage varies. But you will achieve success because you never gave up. The catch is it's okay to give up on things that you don't love. Because if you never give up, and I say this to my kids, you know, you don't want your kids to quit a sport in the middle of the season, right? Or even at the end of the season. Like, you put so much time in this, you know, stick with soccer. But you can't discover gymnastics if you're taking soccer practice, having soccer practice every night at school. So I tell my kids, I was like, it's okay to give up on the things that don't bring you energy and that you truly have reflected on that you're not in love with. But the things that you're in love with, never give up on those.
I love that. Calvin, was there ever a time in Bottle Rocket history where you were close to that point on the hardest day? And if so, how did you push past and stay the course?
So I'll use the most, that's happened a couple of times in my life. There's been times where, you know, Kelly, my wife, and I just barely were able to scrape enough money together for payroll. And there's all sorts of those, you know, startup type stories you've heard from lots of founders, I'm sure. But let's use something that's like really fresh, and that's the impact of COVID and the quarantining and everything with our business, because roughly 40% of our revenue was in the travel, hospitality, consumer and entertainment space, hotels and the airlines and casino, you know, Caesar's Hotel casinos and things like that. And so almost overnight, 40% of our revenue was literally plucked, gone. And it was actually 38% was the exact number that disappeared, and we kept 2% apparently. And it usually, in a professional services company, that mandates a layoff. There's just no two ways about it, right? Oh, You have all this revenue. You have this many people because you have this much revenue. You only have this much revenue. You don't need a third of your people.
Right.
Lay off 85 people. That's like the simple math. But that's the finite thinker. And this is why I suggest people read and watch the videos on finite and infinite game theory. The infinite thinker, who I believe I am, but I certainly aspire to be, thinks not how do I deal with this pain right now, like take an aspirin, but how do I stay with this pain? How do I be with this pain? And find a way to build up enough tension that I can blast past it and become better on the other side of it. And a lot of times I use the analogy of a single masted sailboat going into this huge, tornadic hurricane activity and comes out with 2 sails. Like, how'd that happen? And so what we decided to do instead is we said, listen, we've got to cut back. But if we all chip in and if we all cut back together, we will be the company on the other side of this that has all the talent and has that that brother and sisterhood that will carry us forward even stronger. That's our second mast. And it worked. And I got to tell you, it was the hardest time in my career, in my adult life. And it was the scariest. And I was really worried people would just say no thanks. I'm looking after number one. I'll go to a competitor and get a job from someone who didn't have 40% of their revenue in travel. And we're significantly stronger. We were strong going in, but we're now significantly stronger. And I always knew in my heart of hearts that culture ate strategy for breakfast. Now I have a proof point. Now I can point to the spring of 2000 and say, you see, culture does eat strategy for breakfast. And that's why we're here today and why we have expanded in a dark time.
I love that. Calvin, BottleRocket is hiring. Tell us how.
We are.
How do we connect with you, learn about the job openings,
oh my gosh.
Learn more about BottleRocket? Tell us all that.
Absolutely. So obviously, please go to the website, www.bottlerocketstudios.com, BottleRocketStudios, plural.com, and click on careers. But don't just send in the application. Please send the application. But read what we put up there, because we put a lot of stuff up there that we believe in. And I'm a big believer in the power of polarity. In the very first career page that I put up in 2008 on the BottleRocket first website, I started it off with a very controversial statement. I call it my Shackleton statement.
Yeah.
And because I didn't want everyone to apply, I wanted the right person to apply. That's what I wanted. And so if you resonate with kind of how much in love we are with what we do, and how we're okay with flying our flag, and why we go out of our way to find potential opportunities to even fail, because that's how you learn the most. If that excites you, and learning, a lifetime of learning, not knowing, but learning, if that excites you, and also read about our focus on diversity. Diversity is one of the world's most competitive advantages, but least respected or applied or whatever, I don't know what the exact word is. And so read about our commitment to diversity, because diversity is about adding up a lot of different perspectives to reduce the blind spot that we all have, little by little by little. And when we have diversity of age, when we have a diversity of belief systems, a diversity of gender, diversity of ethnicity, diversity of all these different things, we're smarter. It's like we're better together. We're smarter together. We can see so much more together. And so if that excites you too, then I think you might be the next Rocketeer. Awesome.
And we'll make sure to have all that in the show notes as well. And Calvin, I don't know if you remember what you told me when I first came to BottleRocket. You said, Julian, BottleRocket is a special place. It's where people come to do the best work of their life. And verifiably, that's what it was for me. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it.
And everyone else, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success. If you enjoyed this interview, please subscribe to the show, share this out with everyone that you know, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.